Hi, I'm Travis Markwood with the Lancaster Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce. This is Business Forward, produced by the Lancaster School Network and Interphase Video. We're here today at Rock Mill, and I'm with Dave Fay and Kelly Messerly with the Fairfield County Historical Parks. Thanks for having us out, guys. We surely picked a great day to be here.
You absolutely did. You must have more influence than I even imagined.
Well, Chamber of Commerce are known to be able to order weather in advance, so... but we're certainly glad to be here. Dave and Kelly, want to take an opportunity to learn a little bit about the Fairfield County Historical Park system, where it's been, where it's at today, where it's going, and of course we want to take a look at the mill behind us here before we go as well. But let me just give you a few minutes to talk a little bit about what this is all about.
Thanks. Yeah, we'd love to. And you're standing before the gem, certainly, of our park system, but it wasn't always our gem. In fact, we've only owned the mill for about 8 years, 9 years, something like that. Actually, maybe 10 years now. But before that time, literally, the Fairfield County Historical Parks Commission was a one-horse operation. In fact, we didn't even own a horse, but we started out in 1981 really through the urging of Don Bainter, who was associated with Lancaster Parks. And you know, that's a gem of a park system in and of itself, and I know we don't have time to talk about that, but I sure respect and appreciate what they're able to do. But we went for a long time without any funding except what was supplied by the county commissioners. And then I came on board in 1999 as the first full-time director for the park district, and it was overwhelming. We had at that time, I believe, 6 properties, maybe 5. And my commission was to get as much as you could, because they saw a future to the park district, even without the funding, a necessary entity to try and set aside some of the amazing heritage that we have here in the county. And I would arguably submit that Fairfield County has more cultural history, more of its heritage still intact than any other county in the state of Ohio. And we're taking advantage of that. As its mission, as it was set up, the Park District was not just to provide passive recreational opportunities, but to preserve some of our culture. And certainly the mill's an example. I think we're going to venture over to Lockville for maybe a little segment here during the program today, Travis, and you'll see another important part of our history. A part of our history, actually, that, well, I'll save it until we're at Lockville, but it's absolutely amazing how these things affected our culture and the development of the county. I know, being president of the Chamber of Commerce, you're interested in business. Well, standing behind me is a business. Right. This was a commercial building. Right. In fact, the largest commercial building in the county. And what it did was stop the migration out of Fairfield County. Right. So by its presence here and by it being able to process grains out of the fields, the fair fields of Fairfield County, it was able to establish itself as part of the economic development of its time in 1824. We have now, I think we're bordering on 21 properties, Kelly.
Getting close.
And they're all in some regard or another either a natural history place for plants and animals and the environment we live in, to preserve that bit of our history, so that people who have forgotten what trees and grass and other kinds of animals look like we'll provide that opportunity for them. And then certainly preserving our culture, whether it's covered bridges, canals, an ancient earthworks, which we used to call prehistoric Indian mounds until I got slapped down at a conference for using that terminology. You know, everything's PC, so right. We had to say ancients, meaning they had a history.
Gotcha.
It was just an oral history. Sure. So when we say prehistory, no disrespect intended, just simply means they didn't leave us anything in writing. Right. No pictures, although some of them actually did have pictures with the petroglyphs. But at any rate, we have an ancient earthwork or prehistoric mound down near Tarleton that is one of its kind. There's not another one like it in the whole world. Whereas, for those of you who are ancient mound buffs, the Great Serpent Mound is actually duplicated, not exactly, but then no two mounds are alike, just like the stars anyway, in 5 other places around the world. So we have something here that doesn't, or you can't find it anywhere else. So right. Pick up from there, Kelly. What can we add to it?
Oh, goodness. I think you pretty much said it all, Dave. But we do have 5 of Fairfield County's 18 original covered bridges. Those are ours, and Fairfield County does have the most original covered bridges of any county in the state. A little bit about our park district. We are a separate governmental agency. We're not overseen by Fairfield County Commissioners. We actually have our own board of park commissioners, and we have a wonderful history of people who have been supportive of us. They provide great oversight and direction to us. And I have to give a shout out to our current Board of Park Commissioners. Fred Strasser is our chair this year. Ron Packard is our vice chair, and Lori Marinacci is our third commissioner. And they serve on a completely voluntary basis.
Kelly, thanks for kind of bringing us up to speed there as well. Now let's talk about how big of a year we had last year with the levee. All right, and when we say the levee, for a long time this was your nemesis, right? Trying to get a levee passed. Now, the residents of Fairfield County finally made a decision that they wanted the Fairfield County Historical Parks to be part of this community for a long, long time. Let's talk a little bit about what that is going to allow you to do now.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you brought that up, Travis, because it gives me an opportunity to say thank you. Thanks again to the people of Fairfield County. We're going to be forever grateful, and I think your children, your descendants, are going to be forever grateful as well as they inherit this legacy that you are allowing us to leave behind here. So what that's going to allow us to do, of course, is finish the gem, Rock Mill, here behind us. People seem pretty surprised when we say that we're going to turn it into an operating mill. You know, they say, well, where's the gift shop going to be? Well, there isn't going to be a gift shop because there was no gift shop in a mill. As I said, this was an industrial building, and it was a green building too, by the way. It used the power of falling water to power itself and power all the machinery that was in there. You know, that great water wheel that's out here, which, by the way, is
an overshot water wheel.
Thank you very much. An overshot water wheel, and the largest of its kind in the United States, weighs 20,000 pounds, is 26 feet in diameter. That water wheel supplied all the energy for all of the machinery that was in this mill. But what we're going to be allowed to do is, of course, turn this back into operation. We hope to be able to acquire more land, important land, more historical structures, representative things of our heritage and our past. We'll be able to build possibly a canal boat over at Lockville, not one that's necessarily going to float. You can go around other parts of the state. We don't want to reinvent the water wheel, even if it's a water wheel. But maybe get a set of operating locks at Lockville. Put amenities in our parks. I mean, you go to our parks right now, they're more like properties than parks. You're going to have trouble finding a place to park, so you might have to park on the grass or in the driveway. There probably won't be a restroom. There probably won't be water, and in most cases, probably won't even be electric. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we've got 8 more years left on the levee. So we hope to be able to show people, and that's why we appreciate the Chamber coming out and doing this presentation, so that we can show people what we've been doing with the money. Yeah. And it's being very well spent. It's not being spent on staff, that's for sure. I'm working Kelly to death, and Larry Fink, who's a landscape architect that works with us in doing planning and figuring out how to get some of these things done. What am I leaving out this time, Kelly?
I think you're doing great, Dave.
Okay. All right, we'll turn it back to Travis.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for the rundown. I think Jared's inside checking out the mill. Let's take a step inside, and maybe you can show us around and let the folks watching the show, if they haven't been here, know what this is all about.
And shame on you if you haven't.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's head in.
Welcome back to Business Forward. I'm Jared Kale with the Lancaster-Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce. And Travis was right. I was inside looking around the mill in here, and now I'm joined by Kelly Messerly, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the inside here, some of what the floors were used for, and about some of the original milling equipment that still exists here at the mill. But first of all, let's go over, I guess, this floor here. We just walked in off of, the main entrance there, and you said this was really the business floor. Talk to me about that.
This was the business end of the operation. So the farmer would pull up, they'd stop right here, they'd get their corn or their grain weighed, and then it would go up to the very top floor, our fourth floor. There are 4 floors above grade here and 2 floors down below. The floor right beneath us is where all the action took place in terms of milling. And so the corn or grain would be dried. It would be sent back down to the milling floor via a system of chutes and pulleys. Again, the water wheel was powering everything that was taking place inside the mill. So once they got that situated, the corn or the grain would end up on these millstones. These are the actual millstones that were used when Rock Mill was in operation, and this puppy was built in 1824. In fact, the floor we're standing on right here is original flooring from 1824. They used white oak to build this structure, which is a wonderfully waterproof material, and so that's why we have so much of this still in existence today. When Rock Mill closed, which was about 1906, it was actually a pretty state-of-the-art operation. Unfortunately, at the time, the people who owned it declared bankruptcy. They sold off all of the equipment that was in there, except for these millstones, which, as you can imagine, are very difficult to move. And when we acquired this building in about 2006, one of our volunteers, who happens to be an amateur archaeologist, was doing some digging down at the very bottom floor here. There are, like I said, 2 floors below. At the very bottom floor, he uncovered these stones, which are the only original pieces of milling equipment we still have here at Rock Mill.
Interesting. So they were almost hidden in a way down there?
They were, yeah.
Excellent. And you said 2 stories down, 4 above, so 6 total?
6 total, that's correct. And from the very top, a nice little fun fact of the mill, from the top of the ceiling to the bottom of the gorge is about 100 feet.
100 feet.
Yeah, so it's quite the distance.
Yeah, I know when we were opening up some of the windows to get some light in here, it was kind of scary looking over the edge. I mean, it's hard to believe how tall. I mean, it's probably the tallest thing I've looked out of in Fairfield County, honestly.
It takes some getting used to, but the view is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a beautiful day, again, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about this is not just at this mill, and what we're able to do at the park system is we're creating experiences here. You're actually going to be able to go back. You're going to be able to taste the dust of the mill, of the grist of the grain. You'll hear it. You'll be able to touch it. And we're not only creating experiences that are going to drive tourists here into this county, but we're creating a wonderful environment for people who already live here, hopefully enhancing the quality of lives of people who live in Fairfield County.
Excellent. Well, that sounds good. You've got me sold.
Good. I'm glad to hear it, Jared.
Well, we're going to check in with Travis again and hear a little bit more about Rock Mill, and then we're going to make our way to, I believe it was Lockville Park, right?
That's correct.
All right. Excellent. Thanks.
The Fairfield County Historical Parks Commission was founded in 1981 to protect and preserve the unique cultural and historical treasures of Fairfield County. The Park District encompasses 900 acres of green space situated in 11 of the county's 13 townships. If you haven't visited a historical park lately, it's time to get out and experience history. Immerse yourself in the charm of our 19th century covered bridges. Connect with nature and explore Fairfield County's rich landscape. Stand in our ancestors' shoes and discover how this county was built. We are a separate governmental agency and rely on a combination of levy funds, grants, and donations. As we bring our parks up to speed, we strive to use local resources and contractors whenever possible, keeping those funds and the tourism dollars they attract right here in Fairfield County. Of course, we couldn't do any of this without the support of Fairfield County's residents and our extraordinary volunteers who help us by serving as tour guides, planning events, and keeping our parks in tip-top shape. An abundance of recreation and cultural heritage opportunities await you in your own backyard. Stay current on our upcoming projects and events by liking us on Facebook. And remember, we're not ordinary parks.
Okay, Dave, I just had to ask. I was standing on the other side of the main floor here of the mill. My eye was immediately drawn towards this apparatus right here. I'm curious. You've got to tell us what this is all
What
about.
in the world with a blue ball hanging on the
Yeah.
top? Well, there was a question that came up a bit ago about where was the whiskey? Well, the miller was paid not by money, because they didn't even have pockets in those days in their pants. He was paid in trade. So if a farmer brought 100 pounds of grain up, which they bring more than that, but if they brought 100 pounds of grain up, they got 6 pounds of grain given to the miller for turning it back to them as either flour or cornmeal, depending on what they brought in. Well, this grain started to pile up because, after all, he was in the business of milling grains for farmers, not selling grain to other people or selling flours to other people. So he turned it into liquid corn. Ask the docent if you visit any mill, where was the distillery? You'll find out how much the docent really knows, because almost all mills had a distillery. So you took that excess corn that you were getting in payment, turning it into another product, another entrepreneur opportunity here to have something else to sell. And so they turned it into whiskey. Well, if you do that, you have to have a place to sell it. You have to open a tavern. And just down the road from Rock Mill was a place called the Blue Ball Tavern. And people kind of go, chuckle, 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 the Blue Ball Tavern. Well, what's that mean? Well, all taverns in those days had these things out in front of them. Not this size. Imagine something about 12 feet tall and this arm sticking up out about 8 feet. This is just a miniature of what it would have looked like. And it was named the Blue Ball Tavern because the ball they had hanging from the windlass was painted blue. And there were others. There was a Red Ball Tavern around too. Well, this was a stagecoach trail out here. Lithopolis Road took visitors or travelers from New Lancaster then, so it wouldn't be confused with other Lancasters, to Franklinton, up the road, which we know as Columbus today. New Lancaster, Franklinton Road, and along it sat the Blue Ball Tavern. Well, Travis, I'm going to turn you into a teamster. You're going to drive a team of horses, pulling a stagecoach, hauling freight, mail, passengers to Franklinton. You want to ask yourself as you're approaching the Blue Ball Tavern, do I have to stop or not? If I have to stop, that costs me money, because time is money. The faster I get to Franklinton, the faster I come back, right? So do I have to stop? Well, you can pull up, stop, get off your carriage, go into the tavern, ask the barkeeper, the tavern keeper, do I need to pick anybody up? Is there any mail, any freight? And he says no. You go, I stopped for nothing. Right. But if you had a signal, you'd know whether or not to keep rolling. So if you come to the Blue Ball Tavern, you start to approach the tavern, and that ball is, if I can get it undone here, on the ground like that, or way down on the ground like that. If it's laying on the table, we don't have all the bugs worked out of this yet, as you can see. Yep. You can be the prop man. All right. Good. If it's like that, you know you have to stop. If it's not, and hold it right there, Travis, right at the top. If it's hanging there like that, then you highball right on past. And you'll hear truckers today use that term. Well, we're going to highball on to Texas, on to El Paso, or whatever. All that means is they're not stopping. They don't have to stop. So that term that truckers use, and I'm pretty sure they don't even know why they say that, but what it means very clearly is the same thing it meant then. We're not stopping.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate it. I'm glad I got to understand exactly what this apparatus was, and thanks for sharing that history with us. We want to head over to Lockville now, again, another part of the Fairfield County Historical Park System.
That's low. That's low. That's low and below. Look, he's blushing. Seriously. Okay.
Welcome back to the Business Forward program. Again, I'm Jared Kale with the Lancaster Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce. And now we're out here at Lockville Park, which is off of Pickerington Road, just a short drive from Rockmill, actually. And we're joined again by Kelly Messerly and Dave with Historical Parks. Well, Dave, let's talk a little bit about the actual lock behind us and the park, and we'll get into all those details. But first, what's behind us right there, the sandstone pieces?
The sandstone pieces are Lock 11, and it was so numbered 11 because you started at the reservoir and numbered both north locks and south locks from the reservoir. And the reservoir here, Jared, is Buckeye Lake. Or we should really call it Buckeye Pond because it's only about 12 feet deep at its deepest. But that was a canal reservoir. Something really important happened July 4th, 1825, and that's when the state of Ohio turned around economically. And this is for Travis Markwood and the Chamber of Commerce, because Ohio was dead last in the economy of the United States in 1825 because it couldn't, for the same reason Rock Mill was built, couldn't get its goods to market. And so by building the canal system, both on the eastern leg with the Ohio and Erie, meaning the Ohio River and Lake Erie, and the Miami and Erie over in the western part of the state, Ohio launched from dead last in the United States to number 1 in 4 years because of the development of the canal. And what's behind us is one of the steps or locks that allowed boats to go up or down in level, because right now we are called downwater from Buckeye Lake. Buckeye Lake's quite a distance behind us here. There are 11 locks between us and Buckeye Lake. That means there are 11 steps coming down from the Muskingum, Scioto Valley, or Scioto River watershed. We're on the downside of the Scioto watershed here. It breaks right at Buckeye Lake, actually. Water flows toward the Muskingum River, east of Buckeye Lake, toward the Scioto River, west of Buckeye Lake. So we're standing in a downslope here. So that meant those locks were doing two things. They were lowering the boats down about 7 feet at a time, which is all a lock will change, or raising boats. And the way they did it, if a boat came right between us here, which was about 74 feet long and could carry up to 80 tons of freight, and that freight coming out of here was mostly farm goods, agricultural products, and whiskey, because there was a big distillery right here too, the Midoff, which should ring a bell to the folks in Lancaster and Fairfield County. That's a great old name. Well, they would have floated up to the lock, pulled by a mule and a hoggy. James Garfield might also ring a bell. He was a hoggy, our president. Garfield walked right along this towpath that you can see in the background and up to the locks where the crew would pole the boat into the lock. The water would be allowed, which is higher on the other side, to come in. They'd close the gate. It would come in, raise the boat. They'd open the gate on the far end, and it would go out the other side, hook up to the mule, and away they'd go.
Well, that's really a brilliant mode of transportation, honestly.
Incredible, until the railroads came right alongside this and put it out of business. But you know, this lasted until 1913, and the state of Ohio actually had on the drawing board to build a canal sufficiently deep enough and wide enough to carry lake freighters off of Lake Erie. So we would be standing here looking up 100 feet or more to the top of one of the giant lake freighters you can see on the lake now.
Yeah, well, and again, we are in the actual canal bed.
In the basin, it's called, because if you look at the sides, it's a prism. The sides angle down. They're 18 feet wide at the bottom, 40 feet wide at the top, so it would allow two boats to pass. Minimum 4 feet depth of water. So if you fell off the boat, all you had to do was stand up.
Just like Buckeye Lake.
You weren't a swimmer,
Yes,
just like
just like
Buckeye Lake.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's great historical information. But let's also find out a little bit about the park in general. I see some amenities, shelter house back there, parking. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, well, we have lots of parking here at Rock Mill. We've recently resurfaced our parking lot, and we put in a bus turnaround. We actually participate in a lot of tours. Our VCB is great about getting tours to come to the county, and a lot of times Dave will hop on and lead a group of tourists around, and we've got a bus turnaround there, so it's a great spot. We have a shelter that we've recently restained and put a new roof on. And if you look around, you can see that the towpath is still in place along the locks. You can walk along lock 11, lock 12, and lock 13, and you're walking on history. You're walking on the towpath, just like a hoggy would have done, just like James Garfield might have done before he was elected president, many years before he was elected president. But yeah, so you can experience and literally walk in the footsteps of our ancestors right here in Fairfield County.
Well, that's awesome. It's kind of neat to be standing in the basin right now.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much, Kelly. Thanks, Dave. Travis is going to wrap up the program for us when we come back.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to Business Forward. I'm Jared Kale with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're here for our Young Professional Spotlight, which is sponsored by Crowell Communications. And today we actually have a representative from Crowell Communications, Kristen Renard, and she is the account specialist with Crowell. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Well, first of all, let's jump right in and talk about your education, maybe your background.
Okay, I'm from Lancaster, Ohio. I went to Fisher Catholic here in town, and I graduated from OU, Ohio University, last year with my journalism degree.
Wonderful. Now, let's talk a little bit about your work with Crowell Communications. You said account specialist. What do you do there?
Crowell Communications is a full-service marketing public relations strategy firm. So I get to do a little bit of everything. I work with big companies like Cirque du Soleil, and we also work with small nonprofits and small businesses here in town, such as the Foundation or Buffalo Wild Wings.
Wonderful. Now, how long have you been with Crowell Communications?
I have been with them full-time for about 1.5 years now, but I got to intern with Angela at Crowell Communications for about a year, probably a little over a year while I was still at school.
Okay, wonderful. Now, talk a little bit about our sponsor for this segment, Crowell Communications, and talk to me about the firm.
Crowell Communications is great. We're a small 3-person full-service marketing and communications firm. We do everything from media relations to communications and marketing plans, and work with all kinds of different clients. So it's never boring, and it's always exciting and fun. So.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, you guys are great chamber partnerships, and we appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, you're also involved in the Young Professionals of Lancaster, and that's part of the Young Professional Spotlight here.
Yes.
And you're also on our board. Talk a little bit about your involvement. I think with communications is really what you're involved in with the YP board?
Yeah, I get to be technically the VP of Communications for YPL, and that's really nice. I get to cover all of the communications, so the social media aspects, and sending out your monthly or weekly emails that you get from YPL. I get to do those. But I wanted to get involved because I'm from Lancaster, so I care about the community as a whole, but it was just a way for me to integrate myself in the business and the professional side. When I started, I was only 21, so I didn't really know a lot of people in the professional business side of things, and YPL was an awesome way to get to know everyone.
Wonderful. And if somebody would like to learn more about Young Professionals of Lancaster, they can email you, right?
Yes, they can email me at kristen@crowellcommunications.com, or you can check out the Facebook page for YPL.
Awesome. And you can also call the chamber office for more information as well. Let's talk about your hobbies. I guess what you do for fun. We talked professional, business, all of that. But what do you do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, I recently got a puppy, so I'm playing with him and taking care of him a lot. And I also just had a new baby niece, so I like to spend a lot of time with my family.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thank you for being our spotlight today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that was the Young Professional Spotlight, part of the Business Forward program sponsored by Crowell Communications.
As a company of young professionals, Crowell Communications is proud to sponsor this segment. We specialize in helping businesses and organizations get the right message to the right audience, at the right time, and in the right way. To learn more about Crowell Communications and how they can help you with your communication needs, visit them at crowellcommunications.com.
Kelly and Dave, really want to take the opportunity to thank you for, leading us around today, some of these beautiful parks that we have here in Fairfield County. And thank you and your board and all your volunteers for what you do here. And again, a shout out to the voters that are allowing this to happen here in Fairfield County. Before we go, though, if somebody's interested in learning a little bit more about the parks, want to schedule something, maybe a tour or anything like that, how do they get a hold of you?
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Of course, you can call the park office at 740-681-7249 and see us at our offices at 407 East Main Street in Lancaster. We also have a website, www.historicalparks.org. And if you really want to stay up to date on all the wonderful things that we're working on here in Fairfield County and in our park district, please like us on Facebook. And that address is facebook.com/Fairfield County Parks.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much. Keep up the good work, guys. And we'll be in touch soon, I'm sure. Thanks for watching Business Forward. We want to thank Interface Video and LSN. And hopefully we'll see you next month.
Business Forward Ribbon Cuttings is brought to you by the Frankie Smith Funeral Home. Respect for tradition, regard for change. Locations in Lancaster and Baltimore. Visit them at their website at funeralhome.com.